probably the number one mistake is people say, I heard Pinterest is good for my business. I'm just going to go all in. And then they end up pinning things that don't really connect with their person. They'll upload pins and they'll forget to link to their website. They will just throw up an image, like literally standing there with like a bowl of spaghetti, just be like, let's see what works, right? It's very like lazy marketing. Those are the first mistakes that we see people make. We really just want people to use it first to know what they love and what they don't love about the platform.
Welcome to Marketing and Mindset for Wellness Coaches, the podcast for health coaches and wellness entrepreneurs just like you who are building a business, making the world a healthier place, and designing a first-class life. I'm your host, Kim Foster, MD and certified business coach, and I'm on a mission to help you up-level your strategy and raise your mindset so you can truly thrive and grow your business. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing and Mindset for Wellness Coaches podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about a very powerful marketing tool for your business, but it's one that I think gets overlooked and underused, although I'm not sure why, because it is so effective and efficient, and it's also in really great alignment with the coaching space and the health and wellness space. And I have to say, I'm often encouraging my clients and students to give it a try. But today, I have got an expert on this marketing strategy with me. And so I'm really excited for you to meet her and to hear what she has got to say. So the marketing strategy that I'm talking about is Pinterest. And I have to tell you, if you are somebody who has a love-hate relationship with social media, and perhaps it's a little more hate than love, but you do want to build your reach online and get clients online, honestly, you want to consider Pinterest. I know that Pinterest usually gets lumped in with social media, but it actually functions quite differently than other social media platforms. And if you are totally burned out with all of the hustle and the nonstop engagement that social media often requires, then Pinterest is totally for you because it doesn't require any of that. But I won't say any more right now. I'm going to let my guest tell you all about it herself. So Kate Ahl is the founder of Simple Pin Media, and she has been helping businesses to discover and learn and master Pinterest marketing for over 7 years. She combines the data learned from working with clients and also education directly from Pinterest and her knowledge of the platform to help people expand the reach of their business using Pinterest. Her mantra, which I love, is to keep it simple, be authentic, and pin with purpose. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Kate. All right, today I am very excited to be chatting with Kate Ahl. Welcome to the show, Kate. I cannot wait to dive into all things Pinterest with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to learning a lot more about how our listeners can use Pinterest to market their businesses. And I know that you are the absolute perfect person to talk to about this. Before we get to like the nitty gritty of Pinterest, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and give our listeners some background about who you are and what you do. And I'd also love to hear a little bit about the journey that brought you to this work that you're doing these days.
Yeah. So back in 2010, a friend had actually asked me to work on her Facebook marketing because that was when business pages on Facebook were really starting to take off. And I loved it. I had 3 little kids at home, so I really couldn't do a whole lot, but I really loved this engagement of getting people to talk back. And then she asked me to work on her website too, which was starting to blog and some affiliate marketing. And I found that I really loved it. It kind of tapped into this thing for me. And then in 2013, we found ourselves really hit by the recession. My husband had been unemployed for a while. We could not get our heads above water. We were living on food stamps. And at the same time, Facebook had changed their algorithm for business pages. So basically all this hard work I'd been putting in, nobody was seeing it anymore. So I was with my friend at her table and she had just watched a Pinterest webinar. And we had done some Pinterest marketing. It was just really coming on the scene. And so as we were sitting there, she was like, you know what? You should manage people's Pinterest pages because people are trying to figure out how to make Pinterest marketing work and they just can't wrap their brains around it. And I literally looked at her and I was like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Like, nobody's going to go for that. Are you kidding me? And she was like, well, you're poor. You don't have any money. So you don't have any other option. I'm like, well, oh, okay, that's true.
Fair enough.
So I spent the next couple of months really researching, could it be done? Could I manage a Pinterest account like I would kind of a Facebook account where I could go in and it wasn't really the same, but I could get an idea of how their account worked. And so in 2014, I bought the domain Simple Pin Media with a whole goal of helping to take Pinterest off business owners' plates because I knew how many things they were thinking about between blogging, affiliate marketing, ad marketing, email marketing, SEO. The list was just going on. And I thought, how could I be this respite of Pinterest marketing knowledge and just take it off their plate? So I got 3 beta clients and said, please tell me everything you like about this and everything you hate about it. And if at the end of 3 months it's horrible, we'll just shut it down and pretend it never happened. And they came back and said, this was actually amazing. I'm starting to get traffic from Pinterest and I want you to keep doing it. I'm going to tell my friends. And from there, Simple Pin grew from 3, 6, 8 clients. And then I had to make a decision. Am I going to make it a full-time business or am I going to keep it a side hustle? And I decided at that point to turn it into a full business. And from there, now we have over 100 clients. I have a team of 35. We do lots of different things with Pinterest, but our goal still remains the same, to help business owners understand Pinterest without it being overwhelming so that they can grow their business with this arm, if you will, of how we get people to our website.
That's amazing. I love that whole journey. I love how you just claimed that area of expertise. Like it was a real pivot for you, it sounds like. But you just claimed it. You did what you needed to do to like learn everything that you needed to know and then just got started with some beta clients. I absolutely love that. I think that is so perfect. And then it's clearly grown. So there's clearly a demand and a need. And so that's fantastic. I mean, fast forward to today, like what exactly are you doing now? Like who do you help and how do you help them with their Pinterest?
Yeah, we primarily help 3, mostly content creators and then physical product sellers and digital product sellers. So I would sum it up to say it's people who know their person is on Pinterest, but they don't always have the time. That would be the people who hire us just to manage for them. And then the marketing or the education side are the people that say, I really want to do it myself because I want to figure out how to make Pinterest work for me before I hire it out or I don't have the budget, right? So the biggest way that we serve people is just if you know your person is on Pinterest, we help you get in front of that person or tell you how to do it so that you can make this really work for you because I think it's a really underutilized platform. And frankly, a lot of people come to us and they're either overwhelmed by it, they are focused elsewhere. Maybe they want to spend more time on Instagram, or they just literally don't understand it and they don't get it. And some people don't like it. That's another thing too, is that they come onto Pinterest and they're like, I don't like it. It makes me feel all angsty. And so somebody else just take it over for me. So yeah, I would say primarily it's going to be the people who are content creators and then physical or digital product sellers.
Okay. And you can do this, you can help people either in like a done for you kind of capacity or a done with you, like teaching people how to actually manage it themselves.
Yes, correct. There's a lot of people. We have a membership where we do this we call it organic Pinterest marketing and paid Pinterest marketing. So we have 2 memberships for both of those because some people come to us and they say, I've mastered organic. I'm ready for ads on Pinterest. And then some people say, I haven't even mastered organic and I don't even want to touch ads ever.
Yeah.
So we have the collective and the ad society where we teach people how to do that.
Oh, very cool. So you're meeting people at a number of different places, like where they're at, depending on the different stages and their goals and things like that. That's amazing.
Yeah. And a little hard as a marketing side too, to make sure we're hitting everybody. But, it's been a good lesson to see what are people's pain points with Pinterest and how can we help them overcome those to really leverage the platform in a way that helps their business grow?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's unpack this a little bit. I mean, first of all, I'd love to know, what your take is on why health and wellness coaches should be using Pinterest for their businesses.
I think number one is that people are already searching for the solution that you provide. And Instagram is a really easy platform to start with because there's a lot of connecting that's happening over there. That's a warm audience. People choose to follow you. Whereas when we go to Pinterest, it's a search and discovery network. So it's like Google, it's like YouTube. People approach the platform with a how to or looking for something that provides a solution, not necessarily a person. So let's say there's always in every industry, right? Like somebody who's well known. What Pinterest does is it levels the playing field for everybody so that if you provide a really great solution to what people are searching for on Pinterest, you can be surfaced and found over there. That can help grow your email list. It can help get you clients. And it's just a totally different tool to use that I think people don't look at because it's not very fun, right? There's not a lot of metrics that make us feel good. There's not many dopamine hits on Pinterest.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a big one to think about is Instagram makes us feel good and Pinterest doesn't always, but it definitely can bring the traffic.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is just I mean, a lot of people, when I talk to people like, health and wellness coaches who are just starting and I'm asking them, what are you doing to start to market your business? They almost always describe to me that they're either trying to post on Instagram regularly or they say something like, well, I know that I should be posting on Instagram, but I don't really love it over there. And I'm just like, guys, this is not the only way. And in
Yeah,
fact, it's not the best way, in my opinion,
I agree.
because it's just the way that, people, if you think about the mentality, like I'd love to know your take on this too, but the psychology of an Instagram user, like somebody who's just scrolling around on Instagram, they're not necessarily looking for stuff. They're just looking to be entertained or maybe
Mhm.
connect or be
Yeah.
inspired or whatever, but it's kind of random
Mhm.
versus Pinterest, like you said, it's a search engine. People are going there specifically looking for solutions.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that like with Instagram, I'm an Instagram user. I really like it, and in fact, it's addictive, right? Like we've
Mhm.
seen clearly in the news these days, like that it has been proven to where you get lost in people's lives and their stories, but you rarely leave the platform, and
Yeah.
that's how Instagram's designed it. Whereas Pinterest, the ecosystem is to leave the platform to go find the solution. Now, Pinterest is doing some things to change that just a little bit, but the intent is still the same. I go to Instagram to be served with stories of somebody's life. I go to Pinterest to serve myself. I am not interested in searching for a brand of shoe or a coat or even tips on a particular diet or eating style or exercise. I only go looking for that specific phrase. And it's not ever attached to a brand. It's like, how do I track my food? What are the best apps to track my food? And what people like about Pinterest is that it's visual. It's not just like Google where it's very dry and text based. Sure, you can choose images on Google, but I hardly ever do.
Yeah.
So on Pinterest too, you can save the ideas for later. So a lot of people who might be interacting with your content find it so valuable. They might not be able to take action now, but they want to save it for later, which is another part of the Pinterest ecosystem is that people will come to let me back up. Pinterest users, they plan in advance. So they're thinking 3 to 6 months before they actually take action. So your content could be part of that where somebody's like, okay, January. January is a big time on Pinterest for the health and
Mm.
wellness. It really kicks up literally December 26th. We can see it in all the data, all the searches, everything, because people are looking to quote unquote get back on track. And
Right.
so they're searching for things that will help them do that, not going to, search somebody's brand or something. Whereas Instagram too, we're kind of looking for inspiration, like who's going to go first, who's going to talk about this first, and how can I like emulate their life. That's just different.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. And you're right too. I mean, with Instagram, it's like people just stay on that platform. I mean, Instagram makes it very difficult to link. You can only have that one link in your bio and the whole thing.
Mhm.
But Pinterest is totally designed, it's engineered completely differently to bring people to your site, which is great. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. Okay, so now if we've got a listener who's really on board and likes this idea, but is worried about the time that it might take to actually get started on Pinterest from a like marketing strategy perspective, like how can somebody optimize their time when they're creating content for Pinterest?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I'll start even back at like somebody who doesn't have their profile set up, or maybe the profile is messy. Maybe it's even personal and they need to go to business. So, number one, everybody who's doing business on Pinterest needs to have a business profile, which
Mhm.
again is very contradictory to what sometimes we hear from Instagram. It's like, only keep your personal account. Don't go with that. On Pinterest, you have to have a business account. So then after that, setting up your whole profile should maybe only take you an hour or so, making sure your settings are correct, your link is correct, your site is verified.
Mhm.
All of those things in settings on Pinterest, it just walks you through. The great part is you really have to never touch it again, unless, of course, you rebrand or you have a different website. Anything like that, you would do a simple update. But that top of the Pinterest profile really tells us all about who you are and what you do. That's it. And then getting to the boards that you have, the boards are really important because they help with that search and discovery factor. So if you had, say, 5 boards on your profile that talked about, one would be your business name, then another one would be maybe the type of style that you have for health and wellness. Getting pretty granular is a good idea. So instead of just having a board named health and wellness, you could have something along the lines of, intermittent fasting, right? That's a
Mm.
buzzword that we hear a lot. So, tips for intermittent fasting. Then, what this means is that any pin that goes in there that you create that has the topic of intermittent fasting, the algorithm sees that and goes, oh, this is great information about intermittent fasting. If we have a regular user, let's call her Susie, she searches that, even if she doesn't follow you, Pinterest is going to be like, oh, I'm going to grab from this board and show it to Susie. And she then can go read it. So then that gets to this layer of creating content, which
Mhm.
can take a little bit longer, but here's a few time saving tips. One, the image on Pinterest is your billboard advertising. Think of it as people scrolling through as they've searched for ideas or simply mindlessly scrolling their home feed. They don't read the text that's underneath. That's really for the algorithm. So this image has to like pack a punch. And there are great templates you can buy. We sell some. Canva has templates too. We really like Canva
Mhm.
for the ease of creation. And this is where people can spend too much time overthinking an image. I'm the worst at creating images. Like I'm just awful. I have people do it for me. I have tried, and I will tell you, I will look at the image for like an hour and I'll overthink it. I'm like, it's just have somebody else do it for you if you can, or get templates.
Right.
And that
That's
image,
hilarious. I love that you overthink it. I know
oh,
exactly what you mean. You like
yes.
pull a little thing, like, let's just tweak this. Let's make this a little, this font a little smaller. What about this? Maybe this little element needs to be over here more.
Yes. Or maybe I shouldn't say this. And what about this
Yeah.
phrase? And what about that phrase? Um, let's say, for example, you have a really great blog post on intermittent fasting, some great 5 tips for how to do this well. That's what you would write on your image. Here's
Mm.
another great part is that you can create 2 to 3 more images that all link to that same blog post to be able to kind of spread out, or ask maybe on another image, you ask a question, have you ever heard of intermittent fasting? Or what's the story with intermittent fasting? Again, think along those lines of somebody's going to be reading that and maybe they're going to have this connection of, yeah, I heard that the other day. What is that? Right.
Mm.
So with content creation, we don't think of it as like a really long 7,000 word blog post. It can be short, poppy information that gets to the point. And I would say, as far as how many, getting back to your original question of like how many hours, as far as like creation for Pinterest, it's really going to involve the image is going to take the most time. And then
Mhm.
when you upload that image to Pinterest, you do need to be strategic with the keywords that you're using on what they call a title and a pin description.
Mhm.
So just making sure that it's 2 to 3 sentences, it's very well worded, it's not keyword stuffed, but it's like a text to a friend. Hey, have you heard of intermittent fasting? Here's a really great article about how you can do this in a way that's healthy and maybe is sustainable, right? It still has
Mm.
that word intermittent fasting in it. So again, I'm getting to the time point here.
I
I would
know we're
say,
getting there.
yeah. I would say it really depends on how much content you have and maybe how much of a backlog you have too. But I would say we aim to spend 2 to 3 hours on Pinterest marketing a week in the beginning. Sometimes you'll get so much faster at what you're doing that you may even spend just about an hour. There's a lot of details in there, but for the most part, creating an image, pinning it to Pinterest, writing a great keyword, and then just like checking out what's happening on Pinterest. Give yourself 2 to 3 hours a week to start, and then shave your time where you can.
That's great. Okay, so you're saying if as a like a business owner, you can carve out like 2 to 3 hours a week to just dive in and take care of your Pinterest marketing, get everything all set up, create your pins, all of those kinds of things. So just 2 to 3 hours a week, you can get good results with Pinterest.
Mhm.
Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. And with our people who manage accounts, we call them account specialists on our
Hmm.
team. We've also done averages for them who they are really fast.
Yeah,
I
of
would
course.
say on the fast side, they're going to be about 5 to 6 hours a month
Mm.
compared to what people we know are spending on Instagram, which can be 6 hours a week
Oh
sometimes
yeah,
with the
easy.
commenting. Yeah. So it put it in perspective too that like the goals are different, right? Obviously, the goal with Instagram is engagement and commenting on all these kinds of things. But the goal with Pinterest is to put your content on there, and you can use a scheduling tool. There are several out there to be able to what we call drip your pins onto Pinterest, different boards and such, to
Mhm.
where that is also a time saver, is scheduling ahead. And you're not penalized for scheduling. In fact, Pinterest has approved schedulers that they say these are great to use. And they'll also give you some analytics about, did people save your pin? Did they engage with it? Did they click to your website? And that's really what you're looking for, those two metrics of clicks and saves.
That's great. Is there a scheduling tool that or a couple of them that you particularly like or you prefer?
Yeah. So we like Tailwind, we like
Mhm.
Planoly, and then we have used Later. They've come out with all three of those have Instagram and Pinterest. So we
Mhm.
like that for the business owner who's doing both of them so they don't have to get two different programs.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm all about repurposing content in terms of streamlining. Is that something that you recommend, like repurposing content from your Instagram?
Yeah, it's not so much, you can't take a regular Instagram image and put it
Mhm.
onto Pinterest because you do need that text and some context. Because Instagram users, they will get caught in a pretty picture and then they read. So that doesn't happen on Pinterest. They don't read. So they're only looking to the image to give context. So the
Mhm.
biggest thing you need to be thinking about is square images on Instagram, vertical images on Pinterest, which means they need to be 2 to 3 instead of 1 to 1. So that limits our repurposing right there. And then the other thing too is we don't want to link from Pinterest to Instagram because
Right.
app to app integrations are super clunky. And again, you don't want to send somebody to another social platform. You want to send them to your website because that's essentially what you own. You're not going to, if you delete your account on Instagram, you might have all these pins that lead to Instagram and then there's nowhere for them to go to
Mm.
connect with you. So the only repurposing we recommend is you can take your reels and you can repurpose them into what a new feature has, which is called idea pins on
Hmm.
Pinterest. So, this is a new feature that Pinterest has brought out within the last year. And their goal is to keep people on the platform longer, like Instagram has, because obviously they need to appeal to advertisers.
Yeah.
So, they don't link. So, this is a really interesting new tool that we are seeing that's good for people who are new to Pinterest to build brand awareness, to build followers. And how it works is, let's take that intermittent fasting example. So, let's say people have those 5 tips. They then put them into these slides or cards or what they're called
Mhm.
with tips of tip number 1, and then you add text to it. Tip number 2, tip number 3, tip number 4. These look like a story on Instagram, but they're called an idea. They live forever and they can be saved to boards over and over. And the call to action at the end is to come follow you or visit your profile. So that's a way to capture some traffic by them clicking on your link to go to your website once they hit your profile, but also to do a little bit of like microblogging, if you will, where you can repurpose let's say the reel is the same topic, right? Like, here's 5 tips for intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
You can also use that over on Instagram. You just have to make sure that the content isn't so much about you, but it's more about the topic.
Mm. Okay, that's cool. That's a really neat new feature. I actually haven't checked that out yet, so I'm going to have to go and do that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to see all these different creative ways. I mean, and something that also that you mentioned about the longevity of pins. I think that's another thing that people don't realize too about Pinterest, certainly in contrast to so many other social media platforms, is that like pins last a long time, right? Like most social
Yeah.
media is like here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing.
Yeah. In fact, I have a live training for Pinterest coming up on Monday. So I was actually doing a bunch of research on this. And they say like internet trends last, I think it was like 6 months at the most. And then Pinterest trends last at least another 2 to 3 months longer than that. And we've even seen some pins drive traffic for years. In fact, I have
Mhm.
one too. I pinned something back in 2017 about how to clean up Pinterest boards, and it's still my number one pin driving traffic to my website. And there's an email opt in for a checklist of how to go through all these things of cleaning up your boards. And that gets me like 8 to 9 email subscribers every day. And I haven't touched
Nice.
it in like 4 years. So yeah, this snowball effect of one person pins it, another person pins it, 3 more pin it, 5, and it just goes out everywhere on Pinterest. And anytime Pinterest is looking for content, if something's been engaged with a lot, very similar to SEO and Google, you get those high
Mhm.
rankings because people have engaged with it. That's how it works on Pinterest too. So you just never know what is going to hit on Pinterest. It's a little bit of a guessing game as far as who's going to interact with it and then who's going to save it and share it. And all of a sudden you see in your clicks and your analytics, like, oh my word, everybody's coming to my website. And it's not viral. I think that's another thing to note about Pinterest. It's not this huge spike right away. It's more like an up and to the right, kind of a slow
Mm.
mountain climb.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know in terms of just knowing what to expect and managing expectations too. We're not aiming for viral.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one thing that you also mentioned a few minutes ago was the idea of like knowing when people know that their person is on Pinterest.
Mm.
So I think this might be something that people are wondering about, like how do you actually know if your ideal client, if your avatar, if they are on Pinterest? Tell me about like what
Mhm.
you know about Pinterest users.
Yeah, so there's a couple great things that we have. There is the Pinterest Trends tool. You can find it by going to trends.pinterest.com. These, you can put in any phrase to see when the searches for these particular keywords or trends are highest. And so that's the number one place that we start. Number two, there's a search bar at the top of Pinterest where you can do very similar to the same thing, put in the words. Then connect the dots with what are your people asking? Are
Mm,
your people asking some of these same things? And then what are the themes that are coming up? In the beginning of Pinterest marketing, it's going to feel a little bit like you're throwing spaghetti at a wall. You're not going to feel like you're getting engagement. You're going to want to give up after 45 days. I promise this is how it goes. And then 6 to 9 months later, you're going to start having it catch wind and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it works. So that's
mm,
just mindset. You're going to put in 6 to 9 months, if not a year, into really seeing what's working. But I would also think about what are the FAQs that you get in your inbox and what are your clients asking? Go to Pinterest and put in those phrases to see what is there and what people are talking about. And you can even look at your competition too and see what's happening over there.
mhm,
But I think of it like this, and this is just an example from my business, is the people that will eventually become clients of mine are not spending time on Pinterest. They are most often spending time on Instagram or they are even on LinkedIn, right? They have a different mindset. So if I was to put something on Pinterest that says, sign up for, our managed services where the price point is pretty high, my people really that have engaged with our services, they're not really there. They might
mm,
be leaders of companies or they might be CMOs. They're just not spending time on Pinterest. However, the people who are small business owners who are just getting started, they might come across something about Pinterest marketing, or they might search how to do XYZ or how to keyword on Pinterest. The other thing too is that Google will index pins sometimes too. So there's a chance that like somebody might Google and my Pinterest pin will come up in those searches.
Hmm.
So again, back to that point of like, what are people asking and who are they? So if I know that my small business owner is spending time on Pinterest because they might want to even be capturing their audience who's on Pinterest, I could potentially get in front of them with some of their searches. So it's not as drilled down as we see with Google and SEO. That's way smarter. But with Pinterest, we have the tools of the trends, and then we have the search prediction at the top. And then we have what we know about the questions that are our clients or our readers already asking.
That's great. That's perfect. Yeah, sounds like there's lots of ways of seeing, what people are searching for. And if your ideal client, because you got to know what your ideal client actually wants to know or is hoping to learn or achieve, that kind of thing. So you can figure that out. That's amazing. Okay, good.
And there's one more thing I forgot to share with you. I just thought of it. You can Google this as well. It's called Pinterest Predicts. And Pinterest has done this. In 2020, Pinterest grew exponentially, like out of the water. And so 2021, they really started this like predictions, like what we think will be trending on Pinterest. This is really, really good to read. And it's broken down to health and wellness. Is you can see what their predictions are as far as what they think their people will be searching based on past data. Sometimes it's a little bit of a reach, like they sometimes make up words that I think like nobody's ever going to use this word, but you get some ideas and some creativity about where they think the Pinterest market is going. That's worth looking at to see if you can stay ahead of the curve there and maybe capture some future traffic.
Oh, definitely. Oh, that is cool. I'm definitely going to check that out. And I'll link that in the show notes too. I'll track it down and put that in the show notes so people can find that. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make when they start using Pinterest for marketing?
Yeah, I would say number one is they don't go onto their app, onto Pinterest and look at how it affects them. I think a lot of people just jump on as a marketer and they forget to be a user. And that's really one of the things that I think makes me enjoy Instagram sometimes, because I know what I like and what I don't like. And so I won't do what I don't like because it drives me nuts that other people do it. So go onto Pinterest and do the same thing, use it and figure out, what do you love about it? What drives you crazy? Pin other people's pins. Where does it go? What does it link to? And once you learn those things, you're much more apt to connect with your user and not just be a marketer. I think that is probably the number one mistake is people say, I heard Pinterest is good for my business. I'm just going to go all in. And then they end up pinning things that don't really connect with their person. They'll upload pins and they'll forget to link to their website. So it's essentially a dead pin. It doesn't really go anywhere. They will just throw up an image, like an Instagram image that's a one-to-one, and then they'll link it to Instagram, or they don't even really give much context. It's kind of like literally standing there with like a bowl of spaghetti, just be like, let's see what works, right? It's very like lazy marketing.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do it, understand why you want to do it and have at least somewhat of a target that you're aiming for. And then invest that 6 to 9 months. That's another thing that we hear over and over is people just get so frustrated at that 3-month, 4-month mark. And they're like, this isn't working. And we just have to say, we promise that it is. And just keep going and keep investing, especially if you're getting some movement. And I think the last piece is knowing what metrics are really important to you. So I use my strategy with Pinterest is I use it to grow my email list. That is really my number one main goal. I'm not interested in the number of impressions because I don't work with brands. I'm not interested in this massive amount of clicks and saves all the time. I really want to get the qualified people to my website so that I can get them to sign up for my email list. And then I can talk with them, right? Like I'm taking a cold audience and then I'm turning them into a warm audience. So having a strategy as to why you're using it. And some people might even say, like, I really want a ton of impressions. I really want a ton of clicks and I want a ton of saves. So then your tactics are going to be catered to that, to be a little more clickbaity or to be a little more teasery in some of the language that you're using. But I think those are the first mistakes that we see people make. And we'd really just want people to use it first to know what they love and what they don't love about the platform.
That's great advice. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's so important to know why you're using it. Like, what are your actual goals? That sounds like a really, it's a good place to start. It's a good foundation before you just kind of jump on in there and start using it, to actually know, well, what is my goal? Actually, what do I want to
Mm-hmm.
achieve? And I love the, building an email list. I mean, that is such an important part of building a business, right from the beginning and all the way through. But yeah, okay, I love that. So, I mean, of course, we're just about out of time, Kate. This has been so great. It's been so awesome to get all of your wisdom and pick your brain on this. And I do want to hear all of your details in terms of where listeners can go to connect with you. But before we do that, just any final words of wisdom about Pinterest, especially for people who are kind of at the beginning of dipping their toe into the Pinterest marketing waters. Like, if you just had one takeaway, I know that's kind of a hard question to answer sometimes, but just one takeaway, what would that be?
I would really say those that are back at the beginning, spend some time, like I said, just playing with the platform and setting up your profile. Like, really enjoy it and, poke around and get your image how you want it, write out who you are, and start to dream into who that Pinterest user is. Start to think about it. And then I would tell people, before you start pinning, create a list of 10 short blog posts that could lead then to an email sign up, but 10 short blog posts about things that people are asking you and that people on Pinterest are also asking. So I make this 10 list in like Google Sheets, and then I will take the topic and I'll actually go to Pinterest and I'll put it in and see, okay, I think people are asking this, but are they actually? And it helps me connect with, oh, this is what's coming up in results. Oh, that's not where I was going. Let's try this keyword. Let's try this. And then I start to hit on where I want to go. So it also helps accomplish that goal of using the platform as well as getting that keyword research in. So that's even before you create images, because a lot of people lead with this, like, I'm going to create a ton of images. And it's like, wait, that's kind of cart before the horse. And that's the hardest part for a lot of people.
Right.
So don't do that. Really start with your content. That's going to be what carries. And people on Pinterest love content. That is like the number one way to get people warmed up to you and to accomplish that goal of email list or signing up for services or whatever it might be is, hey, do you have the answer to my question? Yes, you do in this blog post. Okay, I want to sign up with you. And I'll share this quick story on my podcast recently. We had a product seller who was very clear about the fact that they have like a box service for people who are experiencing grief. Like, you can send them grief boxes. All of their people on Instagram were a lot of repeat customers, but all the people on Pinterest, they were all cold, but they were coming in through these blog posts that were like, what do I say to somebody who's just lost a child? Because they were answering that main question that somebody was asking on Pinterest, probably even looking for gifts to send or anything like that. They had no idea about this company. And this company first started with answering that main problem, which is, I don't know what to say. And they would give them answers and then say, here's another great solution, to send them a grief box. And they were like, oh, this is awesome. They created this great connection with somebody who'd never even heard of this company before.
That's a great example. Very powerful. Awesome. Okay, I love it. Before we go, where can listeners go to learn more about you and your work and connect with you?
Yeah, simplepinmedia.com. We have everything there. You can see in the beginning of the page, it's either work with us or we work with you. Follow those. You can listen to the podcast too, the Simple Pin podcast. We are over 250 episodes too of all Pinterest conversations. So start there with some of the recent discussions just about what people's current struggles and successes are on Pinterest. And yeah, we're on Instagram too. So at Simple Pin Media, you can DM us with any questions.
Okay, perfect. I will put all of those links in the show notes too to make it nice and easy. And yeah, this has been such a great conversation, Kate. I've really enjoyed getting all of your tips and wisdom. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so what do you think? Are you ready to give Pinterest a try? If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love to hear from you. And I would love to know if this is something that you are interested in learning more about. Let me know by finding me on Instagram. My handle is at Dr. Kim Foster. And just tell me what you think about this topic. Okay, that is a wrap for today. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you again very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and you're excited to take your coaching business to the next level, then I would love to invite you to attend my free online class called How to Build a Six-Figure Health Coaching Business Using One Signature Program. And that's even if you're a brand new coach. I will be revealing the 3 behind-the-scenes secrets to financial freedom without exhaustion, burnout, or being a slave to social media. In this free class, you'll learn the exact blueprint to having the impact and life you desire, even if you're not sure how to make it happen right now. I'll also tell you about the single biggest mistake new health and wellness coaches make and what to do instead. And I'll be teaching you exactly how to design a signature program step by step, including how to price your offer. And yes, I give you real numbers. To attend this class, all you have to do is sign up at drkimfoster.com/6figures and reserve your seat for free. I will see you there.